Hey guys, in this video I wanted to talk to you, tell you about some tips and things that will help you with your application to optometry school. And I'll be talking about them from my experience as a first year optometry student at the University of Houston College of Optometry. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Chad Sayed. I know it's a little weird. You can call me Shaddy too, but if you can't say Shaddy, Chad is fine. I am a first year student here at the University of Houston College of Optometry. Started in September or August, end of August of 2020. So I'm in the 2024 class. My experience is a little unique, and I'll go over that in future videos. Because of COVID and everything, a lot of our classes are online. But I wanted to essentially, a little more about myself. I am a little older, essentially. I'm 29 years old. So my experience and my application were a little different. What ended up happening is I finished college in 2013. I went to a university in Canada called the University of Alberta. And in 2013, I moved to Austin, and then in 2015, I started grad school. I got my Master's of Public Health in 2017. And in 2019, essentially, is when I was kind of working in the public health field, but then I decided to set it all aside and dedicate my entire life to optometry, because I wanted to get into optometry. So I quit my job in the public health field, and then I started working as a technician and an optician in a practice near the Austin area to kind of supplement my application and show the optometry admins that I am actually very serious about the field of optometry, and I'm willing to learn as much as possible to get into it. So that was short story long. Essentially, I'll go over things that helped me personally get into things that might have helped my optometry application, and I think they would help a lot more people. When I was applying, there weren't a lot of resources or videos from firsthand experience of optometry students. So that's why I felt like I needed to make this video. So hopefully it helps. The main tip that I can give to people not only applying to optometry school, but really any school in general, whether it's medical school, dentistry, etc. Don't be afraid of the numbers or the stats. What that means is when you go on this school's website and you look at the class prior, or the classes that got accepted, and what their GPA was and what the score was on the OAT or the MCAT, etc., it can be a little intimidating, and you will tell yourself, you know what, my GPA is not good enough, my scores are not good enough, and that could stop you from applying. You will tell yourself that, you know what, I'm not good enough for this school, and you'll lose all hope. And you might tell yourself, best case scenario, you'll tell yourself, you know what, I'm just gonna take a gap here and then apply after the gap year. And to me, that is wrong, and we'll go over why that's not the best idea. Or basically not the best idea to just right off the bat give up and take a gap year. It's always good to apply. You're not losing anything. Maybe you're just losing, some money, but overall, you're really going to help out yourself if you apply during, let's say, your third to fourth year, so that you can get accepted or start optometry school right after you finish college. So yeah, don't be afraid, don't be intimidated by those numbers. If you see, for example, I don't know, like some school has the GPA that they require is 3.6. Mentally, you can think of it, you'll start thinking that all of the students need to have a 3.6 GPA, and if I have anything lower than that, then I'm not going to get accepted. But that couldn't be the case. It could be that the 3.6 means that the school accepts, I don't know, students with a 3.1, 3.2 GPA, just as likely as accepting students with the 3.9, that 4.0. So always keep that in mind. Don't be intimidated by the numbers and the stats. Don't let them scare you. Look at them in general, just to have a general idea of which schools are kind of like harder to get into and which schools are going to be your backup, the easy, your chances are higher of getting into these schools. But at the end of the day, you're not just going to go by the numbers, because you're not your experience as a human being matters overall. The things you've done, your work experience, the reason for you to go get into optometry school, and that school specifically, the one you're applying for, all of those things are taken into account when you apply, right? So we're not robots. We're not just looking at numbers. So very, very important. Just have a general idea of, take a look at the numbers to basically gauge where you stand in general and what you need to do and what you need to work on, but don't let them scare you into not applying. Always, always apply. So that is my first tip. The second one is apply early as possible. When I applied for schools back in 2019, I think by this point, like March of 2019, I want to say, I talked to my professors, the people that I needed the recommendation letters from. I had my OAT was going to be scheduled for, I think it was either April or May. I took it super early, and I might make a video in the future about tips and stuff like that, things that will help you with the OAT score as well. So we'll see. But essentially, everything was set up for me to apply, as soon as the application process, started, which I think was in either June or July. I really can't remember. I know that for application to optometry schools, they tell you that you have from, let's say, July till February or March of the following year, but really try not to push it until February or March. And unless you are in a special it's a special circumstance, you really couldn't apply early, then you just go for it. But if you could help it, always apply as early as possible. When you're applying early, you're basically competing with fewer people, and your chances of getting accepted are going to be way higher. So in general, whatever you apply to, even if it's a job. So that is something that helped me on a personal level. I was basically I can't remember, I think I was in the first group that interviewed at the University of Houston College of Optometry, UHCO. And we interviewed in September, if I remember correctly. So that did help. That did help my chances of getting in. So that's my second advice. The third one is going to be, again, it goes with the first advice. Know your schools, do your research. What I did, I made a kind of like a spreadsheet, and if it might be helpful, I can share it in the future. But I made kind of like a spreadsheet that had all kind of like a breakdown of all the different optometry schools that we have here in the States, and thankfully we have plenty. All of the optometry schools that we had here in the States, and then for the year prior, I looked at, for the entering class, I looked at the average GPA, and I looked at the average OAT score. And then the lower those two numbers were, the easier that school was for me, or not for me, but for people to get into. So try to kind of like do your homework that way, so you'll get an idea of which schools are going to be. So for example, one of the easier schools to get into, according to, the numbers alone, would be Midwestern College of Optometry in Illinois. So that could be your backup school. And then obviously one of the harder schools to get into would be, for example, the Ketchum in California. Their GPA requirements were a little higher, and the OAT requirements were a little higher. So know your schools, do your homework. Number 4 that I really wanted to essentially include is your motivational statement. Your motivational statement is you, basically. Because when you apply, the admin, they have a very, they just have your basic demographic information. They know your gender, your age, your basically educational background, degrees that you may have, grades, etc. But at the same time, the motivational statement tells them about you. And it's very crucial to work, as hard as possible on making the motivational statement as kind of like an accurate representation of you, but at the same time, it doesn't also take away from your experience. Now, what I mean by that, I had a first draft for a motivational statement, and I ran it by someone, And they told me that in this motivational statement, you're coming across as too much of a, like I was playing the sympathy card too much. I've been through hardships in my life, financial, etc. And that was included in my motivational statement. And essentially, you don't want your motivational statement to be just kind of like a pity party. A school is not going to accept you out of pity alone. They will direct you to the correct resources if they need to, but what they want to see is how you have been through hardships and how you persevered and you were resilient enough to be where you are today. That matters a lot. That is more important to them than you just basically, trying to play the sympathy card and tell them, I've been through this and through that and etc. So learn how to humble brag, essentially, during in your motivational statement. And in general, that's going to be a very useful skill for you in the future once you graduate and once you become a doctor and you go to other offices. Know your worth. Exactly what you, through your experiences, and every one of us, especially if you're considering applying to optometry school, is going to have a very unique perspective and very unique set of skills. Know what they are, and know how to promote and sell yourself. How to, again, humble brag. You're not sounding cocky. You're not trying to sound overconfident. You're not trying to tell them that I'm the best of the best, and if you don't accept me, it's your loss, that kind of thing. But at the same time, you want to tell them, look, I've done this, I've been there, I have this degree, I have this score, I was the president of this club, I got this scholarship, I got this award back in college. All of those things, you need to basically work on them and put them together in a very essentially coherent way. But yeah, so these are the main tips that I wanted to go over. Oh, a last one, which could be a little controversial, so it's really up to you. When I applied, try to apply to as many schools as possible. You really don't want to risk it, because you don't want to pick the top 5 schools and just go for it. In my head, I was going to apply to, or initially, when I started the application process, I planned on applying to 15 schools, which is plenty, which is a lot. I think after you apply for the first school, each additional school is going to be it's going to cost like $75. But for me, I saw no harm in applying to so many schools. However, I did it the smart way, which was, since I applied early, and again, this is another reason why applying early is so important. Because I applied so early, I decided to apply for 5 schools at the time. Okay? I applied for 5 schools at the time, and I was going to do like 5, and then if I get, rejected or whatever, because I was going to find out kind of early, because again, I applied early. I was going to apply to another 5 and then another 5 until I completed the 15. But the idea is, try to do that if you need to. Hopefully you don't need to apply to 15 schools or even anything more than 5 schools at a time before you start getting interviews, interview requests or stuff like that. And one of the first schools that I applied to was the University of Houston, thankfully. And I'm so lucky to be here. I love it here. I might make another video about why I picked the University of Houston, my experience here so far. But yeah, I applied early in September, and they let me know like maybe a week or 2 later that I got accepted. So once that happened, I interviewed at one other school. It was Salis, for the 3-year program that they had, which was also very interesting to me. But once I was accepted at the University of Houston, I was like, okay, I'm not applying to any more schools. And then the other 3 schools that wanted me to come in for an interview, I had to cancel them because, again, I wanted to go see them just, out of curiosity, but also financially I wasn't able to. And one other tip is, if you need to, contact the administration offices directly. You never know. Again, don't look at the numbers and the stats alone and let that intimidate you. Because I'm a little older, I graduated college in 2013. Some of the classes that I took, the prereqs for optometry school, I took them in 2009. And for the University of Houston, if you go on their website, they'll tell you if your prereqs are over 5 years old, don't bother applying. You're not going to get in. So what I ended up doing is I contacted the administration. This was after I took my OAT. At this point, by the way, I was like, I already started applying to a few schools, and I completely gave up on the University of Houston because I was like, there was no point in me applying, according to their site. But I really wanted to basically go here. So I called the administration office, and this wonderful, wonderful lady and human being, she answered the phone. She was very helpful. She was very nice. And she told me, even though my prerequisites were kind of like over the limit, she asked about, I told her that I have a master's degree in public health, so that helped. And also she asked about my OAT score, and thankfully it was a little higher than average. So that also helped. So she said, apply, and there's no harm in applying, and we'll see. And yeah, that was it. I took it from there. So if you have any other questions, again, that could be like an additional sixth tip. Contact the administration offices directly. Explain your situation to them. Tell them that you really want to go to their school specifically. They like it. They like it when you tell them that I'm not just trying to get into optometry somewhere. I want your school for so-and-so reasons. Do your research. And if you tell them all of this, you never know what kind of exceptions or things they might be able to do for you. I hope this helped. I'm planning on making future videos, for other optometry stuff. But if you did like this video, please leave a comment. Let me know if what kind of how I can help. If you guys are stressed about something, if you don't know what to do for the OAT, what to do for the application process, what to do for the interviewing process, leave a comment, and I'll try to make some other future videos.